Ladies and gentlemen, we are live!
Lyrically, I'm untouchable, uncrushable. Running in a 600, running in a 600. Untouchable, uncrushable. Running in a 600, running in a 600.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode here of Punch the Face Radio. I'm your host, Brandon Stubbs, and it's a huge fight week here for us boxing fans. So I would be remiss if I wasn't joined by my brother in boxing, SaturdayNightBoxing.com's very own Adam Abramowitz, also known on Twitter as SNBoxing. Adam, man, thank you for coming back on with me, my brother.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited about tonight. Huge show we had last weekend. Probably one of the best of the year coming up on Saturday night. But you know, I didn't go to the silly stuff tonight. I went right to the good scotch. So I'm ready. You know, some good scotch. I'm ready to dig in.
Well, we're gonna dig right into it, man. This Saturday night, live from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. Saul Canelo Alvarez versus Gennady Golovkin for it is actually for the lineal middleweight championship, if crazy as that may sound, but it's finally going to happen. It's been 2 years stewing in the pot. Better late than never. I'm not, turned off by this, like we had other fights that have brewed too long and didn't happen at all or happened at a bad time. This is finally happening. Both of these guys are still relatively at their peak. So, it's finally here. Were you shocked that the fight is actually happening this year and we're not seeing it here next year like a lot of us thought was going to be kind of the process? But Oscar stuck by his word, said it would happen, or were you surprised when it actually got made?
So I'm always surprised when big fights get made, and, I think in boxing we're kind of used to the runaround. But I think the landscape of boxing is, when you have so many big fights, which we've had this year, and so many great fights, I think there's pressure to put on big events. The competition is stepping up. We had the Joshua Clito fight. You had the Mayweather-McGregor fight. I mean, you've had some really captivating big events. And then once you've got past the big events, we've had some incredible fights this year. So I think in that regard, the public. Certainly, Golden Boy could have delayed more if they wanted to, but I think it's right. And there's a lot of money to be made, and good for the fighters, good for promotions, good for the fans. I didn't love the way it all went down. I kind of wish it happened sooner, but it's here, and both fighters have a chance to win. Both fighters are compelling stories in their own right. And we should get a great middleweight fight. One of the biggest and most exciting middleweight fights we've had in a generation. And I can't wait. I hope Saturday gets here tomorrow. I just want it to be here. It's fantastic.
I was in Las Vegas the night the fight actually was made official, which was a very strange night, truth be told. And, there's all this weird theatrics that kind of went on. The giant black screen and a curtain comes down and, they show this video of Gennady Golovkin and I'm like, the hell are we watching? And then all of a sudden he appears in the ring. Very odd, very WWE style introduction here for this fight. But nevertheless, I'm glad it's finally happening. Kudos to Canelo because I don't think it was ever Canelo's doing of him scared to fight Triple G. I'll stand by that I don't think he's afraid of him. I legitimately think he will fight whoever they put in front of him to a degree. I think it was more of Golden Boy wanting to maximize the dollars on this from a business aspect. So I think it's worked. They're calling this supremacy because for all purposes rendering that the winner of this fight really is going to be in control of boxing as far as being maybe the big star of the sport. So not only would they rule the middleweight division, but they're going to have a strong grip on boxing as a whole. The amount of press and attention this is getting, the winner of this is going to be supremely the best guy in boxing. A lot of people are going to look at it as being the money guy. So the proper tagline for this fight being named Supremacy.
Yeah, I can see that. Compelling things to talk about going in. The first thing, I wrote a preview, which is on boxing.com, and one of the things I kept coming back to was that Daniel Jacobs fought with Golovkin earlier in the year, when Golovkin had a tough fight, tougher than expected, wound up winning a close, unanimous decision. And I think the thing we need to figure out is, did that fight go or was just Danny Jacobs really well prepared and coached and had an enormous size advantage? So the way that Danny Jacobs was switching stances, the way he was going in and out, the fact that he might have been 180, 181 pounds the night of the fight, Golovkin looked uncomfortable at stretches in the fight, and that's not something we've used to see from him. We used to see him go forward, be like a seek and destroy type fighter. At certain points, especially when Daniel was going to the body, Golovkin kind of stepped away and said, no, let me reset. So it wasn't a great performance by Golovkin. Many people say, well, that's why it's now waiting to happen. Before we get into say more, is this a Golovkin or is this a one-off because Jacobs just posed a unique physical and athletic threat that Golovkin hadn't faced before?
I think it was one of those things to where it might have just been a rare night for Daniel Jacobs. Daniel Jacobs isn't a garbage fighter. I think we kind of down him a little bit for him being a PBC fighter, and he hasn't faced the greatest of all competition, but, maybe his one loss, besides the Golovkin fight, maybe we can chalk that up to him being sickly and him having, having cancer, then, finding out later that he had that and then, not fighting for a stretch. Maybe we can chalk that loss up to that. We can possibly say that. Jacobs may not be as bad of a fighter as we thought, to where he really gave Triple G legit problems. And I don't think you can take anything away from Triple G from that. I think you have to give more credit to Daniel Jacobs for that. I think you have to actually give credit where it's due and say he didn't get blown out of the water. He was there to fight. He stood toe-to-toe with the best middleweight in the world, and he held his own. It was a close fight that I think Triple G did enough to win, absolutely. But nevertheless, Jacobs didn't do anything to discredit his name or his reputation going forward. He hung in there with the best, and I thought he did a good job. I think, that kind of performance really made a lot of us think, okay, Jacobs is legitimately the number 2 middleweight in the world. So I think that was just one of those nights where he rose to the occasion. He dared to be great, and he came up a little bit short, but he definitely was a solid fighter that night, and we have to give him credit for giving that and putting that effort out there against Triple G and not being intimidated like we've seen so many fighters up to this juncture have against Golovkin in the ring.
So if you were to pick one big key to this fight, the most important thing in this fight on Saturday night, what is that one thing to you?
It's going to be, this is going to sound really strange, and I'll explain, but it's going to be Canelo's lack of power. And the reason why I say that is this, that I want fans to kind of look at it from this aspect. He had a stationary target in front of him in Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. this past May. I watched the fight, was there. He didn't rock him. He didn't ever have him in any legitimate trouble. Couldn't knock him down. He fought a smaller guy in Miguel Cotto, who's sturdy. And everybody knows I'm a Cotto homer. But he never actually hit him with anything that had Cotto in legitimate trouble, and Canelo was a much larger man that night. So we see all these videos of him hitting these bags extra hard and with such ferocity and such force. I don't think he has the punching power at middleweight that's going to really make Golovkin say, okay, let me back up, let me fight a different way. I don't see the power being there. I just don't. And those two fights really stick out in my head in regards to punching power. That if you can't hit a stationary target that's in front of you, if you can't down a smaller man, what makes you think you're going to be able to beat a legitimate middleweight at middleweight? So that's going to be my key, is going to be Canelo's lack of power And if he doesn't have that power, he's not going to be able to gain Triple G's respect to keep Triple G off of him throughout the fight.
I picked Golovkin's jab. I think that's the most important thing in this fight because, even when he faced a difficult opponent in Jacobs, I think the jab won him the fight. He's able to score with it. It's a hard jab. He's constant. When everything else wasn't going right, where he couldn't really score with a lot of combinations and he couldn't be consistent offensively, he still had that jab to keep Jacobs from being more aggressive. And I think the jab on Saturday night is going to be important to keep Canelo's punch volume down and also just to frustrate him. So I think Golovkin can win some rounds with the jab. Now, that's not going to work all night because eventually, he's not going to pump 50 jabs around. I mean, there are dead points in a round. And Canelo's a very good counterpuncher, and I'm sure he eventually will figure out, there are ways to take away the jab. There's 3 or 4 in particular. But I think Golovkin's jab, and even in a greater sense, his boxing skills, which are kind of underrated, that's going to be the key. And what I mean by the boxing skills, if you look at the fight against David Lemieux, Golovkin boxed his way to that knockout victory. He was using the jab. He stayed very composed, disciplined. He wasn't running in like he did in the past. He respected Lemieux's power. He just went back to his boxing fundamentals. Touch him with a jab, hit him with a hard right hand or a hook. Don't get too greedy. Respect your opponent. All of those things from his amateur background kind of came up to that fight. And it shows you he's an intelligent fighter. He's not just, a fighting guy. He has that boxing background to go with his power. So to me, I think that's the big thing. If Canelo can figure out a consistent way to take the jab away, which is certainly possible. I mean, we've seen guys like Hopkins take away the jab from an opponent in the first round. I mean, there are ways to take away a jab. But if Golovkin can assert supremacy to keep the theme of this show, assert supremacy with the jab, I think it's a much easier fight for him. So that's what I'm looking for. In those first 3 rounds, can he unload the jab? Can he score with it? Can he frustrate? What does Canelo do with it? So I think the first adjustment on the fight is on Canelo. How do you get inside or how do you neutralize the jab? How do you score with that jab that's going to keep coming? And Jacobs did a very great thing at certain points by getting out of the pocket where he'd rush in and out and jump in and out, and the jab becomes less effective. That's one technique. I don't think Canelo has the same type of foot speed that Jacobs does. Which, when Jacobs was going lefty, it kind of helped neutralize the jab a little bit. But that's what I'm looking for. The establishment of the jab by Golovkin and Canelo's ability to fight through that, to find ways to neutralize it. So that's the first thing I'm looking for in the fight.
And it's funny you bring up the footwork. One thing that we all kind of noticed with Canelo. Canelo is a very flat-footed fighter, and that's not to his advantage. We've seen him struggle against guys who have good footwork to great footwork. Now, Golovkin's footwork isn't, that of, Mayweather's or Lara's, but it's still good to where it's good. It's maybe better than Trout, who these are all guys that Canelo had issues with. He had trouble dealing with guys with footwork, with Mayweather, with Lara, with Austin Trout. Granted, these are fights he won, minus the Mayweather fight, but he had issues. We saw those troubles he had. And if that's something Golovkin's able to use, if he's able to use footwork and use movement, the flat-footed Canelo, he has to push off those legs to generate that power behind those shots. Like I said, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be something he's going to need to do to have to figure out the footwork aspect of this and try to gauge how he can range and get in range to get inside to hurt Triple G to the body, which I think is going to be another key. I think he's going to have to work the body of Triple G, but as you stated, it's going to be tough for him to get inside. That footwork and him being flat-footed, it won't work to his advantage here this time around.
The other thing I'm really looking forward to seeing is the work of Canelo's corner, led by Eddie Reynoso. And I thought they had a terrible night against Mayweather. If you remember, famously, they came in with plan B, plan C. We have plan B, plan C, plan D. And meanwhile, that whole fight, Canelo's just following Mayweather around the ring. Doesn't really know what to do. Just getting hit by the odd shot. Didn't have a plan of attack. I will say they had a very good game plan against both Lara and Canelo. Against Lara, it was hit whatever was available. The guy's going to run, shoot that right hand to the body, hit whatever you can. The guy's going to be seen as running. I thought they had a good game plan. I thought they had a good game plan with Cotto to get Cotto to come to him and catch Cotto coming in and going out. And I thought, so I've seen progress. But, this is a different proposition. I do expect that Golovkin will get off to a decent start in this fight. So what do they do? If what they've worked on in the gym doesn't materialize immediately, does Reynoso have a viable plan B? What else can they do? And I think this is a really critical night for Reynoso, obviously for Canelo too. But, these trainers have a lot of pride, and these are the types of fights that define careers. And so if Eddie Reynoso want to be thought of as the next generation of great Mexican trainer, the next Nacho Beristain, sometimes the trainer has to find a way and communicate that to the fighter to find something that works. And so I'm really going to be looking forward to seeing what they do in the corner. I'm looking forward to see how Canelo responds, how he listens, if they can implement changes on the fly, if they're prepared. Like, what if Golovkin boxes? What do they do? What if Golovkin, is only really wants to jab? What do they do? What if he's not going to just come to them and they can counter? So I think there are a lot of fun and interesting variables in play, but I think the corners, Abel Sanchez is a good trainer. There are things about him I don't love. I mean, I think he's a grandstander, and I wish he would not talk as much as he does. But he's been in many of these championship fights over his career with the Norris brothers. He's been involved in big fights before. He and Golovkin work very well. There's only been really that one fight, maybe the Uma fight, where the fight was in doubt for points in time. So I think the onus is on Reynoso to prove his worth and to show what he can bring. I think this is a defining fight for Canelo and his corner.
Now, with that being stated, somebody had said something yesterday when they had the Grand Arrivals. Do you think that Triple G could be mentally shook given the fact of the magnitude of this event and the size of it? Because, they're saying, oh, well, Canelo's been there before. He fought Floyd. So, I mean, he's used to the circus atmosphere. Well, Triple G isn't used to that. I mean, do you see that playing in any way as a factor to where the moment may be too big?
Yeah. One factor, which is everybody knows this is Canelo's house. Everybody knows that the crowd, and Golovkin knows this, the crowd is going to be for Canelo. Close rounds, I think the advantage is going to be to Canelo. So that can play with your mind. Did I do enough? Do I have to take risks? Do I have to do more than I want to? So this could be an issue with conditioning. This could be an issue of going to the well a little too much early. There could be some mind games involved in so concerned that you're not winning rounds enough and by large enough extent that you make mistakes, that you take chances that you wouldn't normally take. So I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but I'm saying that could be a factor. Luckily, Golovkin is 35. He's boxed in the Olympics. He's been on foreign soil. He's had big events before. He's been the away guy, quote unquote. But still, this atmosphere is going to be supercharged. There's one of the judges, Dave Moretti, has put in so many really pro Canelo scorecards over the years. There are concerns. So will that force Golovkin into make a mistake? Will that force him into having some conditioning issues by going full throttle? I don't know how that plays out. But I do know for many fighters that atmosphere has gotten the best of them. That's one of those X factors we just don't know. It certainly could play a role. I'm mostly thinking it doesn't, but you never know.
It's funny you say that. I'll put the poll up, and we have actually a couple different polls going up, and we'll check the one here on SN Boxing here in a few moments because we had a lot of voters there. But the one I put up here on Twitter here on the Punch to Face Radio poll was simply put, who wins Saturday night? Your options are simple: Canelo, Triple G, a draw, or the judges rob someone. And I thought that was an important factor because, like you said, man, we see some wacky scoring. And, I think everyone knows that, like you said, Canelo's the house fighter. So if anything is close in any way, shape, or form, he's going to get the nod. For better or worse, this is just where we are in boxing right now. The results from this following it was nobody thought it was going to be a draw. 5% of the voters do think the judges will rob somebody. 25% of the votes were for Canelo and 70% for Triple G. Now, that's here on the Punch the Face radio poll, and through SN Boxing right now, we're at a very wide margin here, 50-plus voters for Golovkin, around 20-ish or so for Canelo. Nobody also as well on SN Boxing is picking it as being a draw.
I mean, the thing is, you look at those numbers, it's like 2.5 to 1 or 3 to 1, and people favor Golovkin versus Canelo, and that sounds about right to me. The difference is the hometown factor that Canelo is going to have. So that if everything's equal and they're a neutral site, I think those 2.5 to 3 to 1 odds are probably correct. But it is not a neutral site. And then the other thing is, the money is going to come on Canelo. I mean, Golovkin is like a 1.5 to 1 or 1.75 to 1 favorite right now. People see this as a close fight, but also you have to remember, I mean, they bet Floyd down to almost like 2 to 1 against Canelo. So there's an enormous backing of him. And he's big business in Vegas, blah, blah, blah. We all know all of that. So, I understand the polls. I think it might be a little closer than that in terms of the fight. Canelo has really improved in the last 3 or 4 years since the Mayweather fight. He's had to fight different types of opponents. He's won in different ways. He's won through knockouts, with Kirkland and Khan. He's won by being smart. I think he fought very disciplined against Cotto. I think against Lara, he showed that he could really follow a game plan against a very tricky opponent. That was one of those toss-up fights. I thought Canelo did win 7 rounds in that fight. Trout was a tricky guy. So he's had to learn a lot of different things over the years to face different types of fighters. He's grown into his body. He has self-belief. He still has those incredible combinations. So he's improved. 2 or 3 years ago, I don't think anybody would have said he would have been ready for Golovkin. But now everybody looks at this fight, and Golovkin's 35, and Canelo's in his physical prime, and it's exciting. It's a compelling matchup. I always thought Canelo was going to do better maybe a year or two ago than others did because I look into the fact that Canelo used to be a sparring partner. I've been impressed with Golovkin. I've been impressed with Canelo's chin throughout the years. So I always thought for me that this fight was going 12. The question is who does better over those 12 rounds.
So we've got the phone lines are lighting up. So I'm thinking we should go with our official picks here now. So you're saying it's going to go 12. Who does SN Boxing's on? Adam Abramowitz, who is he picking to win Saturday night?
All right, so my official pick was Golovkin by majority decision. So I don't think the fight will be that close. I think Golovkin may wind up winning 8 or 9 rounds, but I do think it will be one of those scenarios where there is one judge, whether it's Dave Moretti, who has given very favorable scorecards to Golovkin, or it's Adelaide Bird, who's a complete wild card, and I have no idea why she keeps getting big fights. She's just one of those judges who just very inconsistent. I'm not saying she's biased one way or the other. I'm just saying she's not really good. So you never know. I mean, seriously, like I'm not going to tell you she's always for the house fighter. She's had strange-ass cards for the B-side. I don't know how the hell she's ever going to look at a fight. So I think one judge is going to have it a lot closer, I think it's going to be like an 8-4 fight. But I think one judge is going to have it even. So I see it as a majority decision for Golovkin. I think there's going to be some exciting rounds. I expect Canelo to make some adjustments in rounds 4, 5, and 6 and to come back into the fight. And then I think Golovkin wins the fight at the end by boxing. I think he just gets on his horse. He realizes that I'm getting hit with these combinations. Why don't I go back to use my size and my boxing skills? And I think that's going to cement the fight. I think it's going to be really interesting because, everybody is conditioned to think of him as this killer. But I really think his boxing intelligence and IQ and his composure are going to carry the fight. How about yourself, Brandon?
Well, here's where I'm at. As I'm going to now tweak this out as we are now saying this. So I've got Triple G winning via TKO in any time after the 8th round. I just honestly look at him as being the hardest puncher to this juncture Canelo has faced. I wonder how much power, like I said, the power of Canelo is just, I don't see it. If I'm wrong, please, callers, feel free to call in, 929-477-3165. Tell me why I'm wrong if I'm delusional and not seeing Canelo's punching power, here at this middleweight ranking, or the Canelo weight, as he likes to call it. I just don't see it. I'm like you. I think the biggest factor is going to be when things get tough, after those first few rounds of the filling out process, what sort of adjustments is Canelo's team going to give him? What kind of specific instructions are they going to give him to tell him to do something different from when plan A is not working? And I think that's going to be a huge factor. If they can't give him the proper tools that he needs and what they're seeing on the outside and how he can adjust, it could be a long, excruciating night for him. Very similar to what we saw when he fought Mayweather, to where he was just kind of a fish floundering out of water. We knew he was a legitimate fighter, but the tools just weren't all there. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be the same kind of night for him this time around come Saturday, but the problem is Triple G can actually punch and can punch hard. So if he gets hit flush by a couple of those combinations by Triple G, it's not going to end well. I see Triple G breaking him down. I see the fight at least going 8 rounds, but I'm looking for a stoppage really probably around the 10th or 11th round. I don't see it going the full 12. It'll be entertaining. Well, it'll be entertaining on one side for a lot of fans, but I just don't think Canelo's punching power is going to be enough to keep Triple G off of him and gain that respect, and he's going to get walked down, especially the back half of the fight. After that filling out process is over those first few rounds, we're going to see Canelo backpedaling a lot in this fight. It's unfortunate for him because he's a young guy, but I don't see it at this point. I just don't see it.
So you don't think the fight, even before the knockout, is going to be competitive?
The first 2 rounds will be because it's going to be a filling out process. And then once, Triple G pretty much figures him out and Canelo doesn't adjust to Triple G figured him out, no, it's not. I don't think it's going to be much competitiveness. I don't think the counterpunching of Canelo is going to be really there. I think Triple G is going to work off the jab, which is a thing that I agree with you on as being a very key point, but I also think the footwork of Triple G is going to give Canelo's flat-footed behind problems. Him being such a flat-footed fighter is just going to cause problems for him. And another weird thing is Triple G seems to be more hyped for this than he was for the Jacobs fight. Abel Sanchez has even said himself in a couple conference calls I've listened to that he's really wanting this. And the only fear that I have is that he gets too anxious and he gets caught with something crazy. But I just don't see it. I don't see the power of Canelo being there. The thing is, Canelo's still young. He can bounce back from this fight. He can look at it like this. He could probably have lost to the best fighters in this generation of boxing in Mayweather and Triple G in various different weight classes and can still be great himself. So I don't want to take anything from him if he loses here Saturday night, but I think Triple G is going to just be too much for him at this juncture of his career.
Are you concerned at all about Golovkin's defense?
I think that's going to get tightened up. I think what's going to happen is I think he's going to test the waters early and see what kind of power Canelo does have. And I think if he tests those waters and he's not really, all that shook by it, then no, I don't think the defense is going to be much of a problem. Kind of similar to what we saw when he fought Kell Brook, because he got hit a lot against Kell Brook, but we know Brook didn't have the punching power, with him moving up in weight to really hurt Triple G. He took those shots. Triple G took those shots, but Brook didn't have enough behind those to do legitimate problems, it hurt harm to him, to where he was like, you know what, I'm just going to continue to walk him down, continue to go forward, and continue to land my shots. So I think that may be another one of those things here to where Triple G may eat 1 or 2 to get off 3 or 4. I think he may do that here. But I think we're going to have to definitely see how those opening rounds go and see how much of those shots he takes and how well he takes them, if that's going to be the approach he goes to the rest of the fight.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point because in Brook, the Brook fight, Brook had a lot of success jabbing and moving and boxing early. And, and Golovkin may have dropped, either 1 or 2 or the opening 2 rounds, but he was one of those, investing a ton to the body, in that fight. And so even when he was, quote unquote, losing those rounds, he was the one putting in the great work. Brook was laying the flashier shit and probably getting the scorecards on the judges, but it was the Golovkin who was systematically breaking him down. And, one of my keys in the article was body punching because I think both of them are really good at it. And they do it different ways. I think Golovkin's more of like a one-punch guy, and Canelo can kind of go with combinations to the body. And I think that's going to be really key too. And that's, I don't know who's going to respond better to that. But I hear what you're saying. I think that's interesting. And, obviously I don't see the fight the same way that you do. But and that's what makes it fun. There's no law that says we have to agree. But we're expecting a great night. And, it's one of those, this isn't like a bullshit fight. This is not one of those circus environments. This is one of those, like, legitimate great fights. And we don't get enough of them. I mean, I think the Brook Spence fight was like a legitimate great fight. The Joshua Klitschko fight. These were no hype. No hype was needed. I mean, it's hype because we're excited about it, but this is a great fight. So win or lose, whoever makes it out, is going to wind up with a lot of glory. I mean, as long as there isn't any shenanigans or anything like that. But the winner will have earned it. This will be, I think, each of them is the best opponent they've each faced. If Golovkin wins, there is a mandatory rematch. It does not go the other way. So if Canelo wins, there is no mandatory rematch. So it's a nice life being the A side. Yeah, it's good life being the A side. But yeah, I'm excited about it, and I gotta tell you too. And then we'll go to another topic. But there's when there's a big fight, there's a build. And this fight is really building. I mean, I think it's getting consciousness in casual sports fans. I think they have an awareness of it. I think it's seen as an exciting matchup. They're both very marketable fighters. I think the event is going to be very successful. I expect it to get over 1 million pay-per-views. I think it's going to be a really good night for boxing as long as the judges, if it goes to decision, as long as everybody's fair. It has all the makings to be a really good night for boxing.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Now, we got phone callers here, man. Should we take some of the calls now here? Because I know we got some people hyped to talk Triple G Canelo. Should we take some calls now?
Yeah, let's do 2 calls now, and then I know we got a ton of stuff with the undercard and Superfly. So let's take 1 or 2 calls now, and then we can take some more later.
Absolutely. Well, I know this area code, so I know I gotta let this person get off. They're not all that enthused about this fight, but nevertheless, he's a proud supporter here of Punch the Face Radio. The one and only Mike Money. What's good with you, man?
Brandon, Adam, I'm just sitting back here enjoying the show. I love what you guys do. Adam, I read your piece, and damn, you kind of stole my thunder a little bit talking about the body punches because I remember in that Canelo versus Lara fight in rounds 4, 5, and 6, he was digging to Lara's body. Now, I disagree with you that Canelo won 7 rounds. I don't think he won 7 rounds. And I'm just thankful that Levi Martinez, bitch ass, is not a judge in here because he scored that fight 117, 111. I don't see how Canelo won 9 rounds in that fight. But be it as it may, you hit all the salient points that I was going to make. I think body punching, going to the body is going to be key. And something I wanted to ask you, gentlemen, Canelo cuts weight better than any boxer out there. And he balloons up to damn near cruiserweight. Is there a cap on how much either fighter could balloon up in weight after the weigh-in tomorrow? Because that's a huge advantage to Canelo, because that's why his chin is so good, because he does have a good chin, granted, but he balloons up so much that it'll take some sting off the shots, because I know Golovkin is a power. He definitely has some power behind them punches. But I think that's also going to be key. I have Triple G winning by a split decision. I'm praying and hoping that anything close goes to Triple G. I'm not enamored by either one of these fighters, but this is supposed to be a big fight. I was more excited about the card that you're going to talk about later from last week, the Superfly card. I was definitely more excited and hyped for that. But I think it's the body puncher that you just alluded to, and I think it's the fact that can Canelo cut off the ring with Triple G, and does Canelo tire out in the later rounds, because he does have a tendency of doing that also.
So let me answer one of your questions, Mike. And there's some controversy around this, minor controversy. So the IBF, which has one of the titles, I believe, up for tomorrow or up for Saturday, they usually have a 10-day mandatory weigh-in clause. I mean, you can't be over 10 pounds the next day. However,
right.
the other organizations do not have that rule. And I believe that the IBF is saying we are not going to insist on that clause, because if you remember, Danny Jacobs violated that.
Yes.
So he did not get weighed in again the next day. And so if he would have won the fight, he would not have won the IBF title. The IBF said, you know what, there's too many shenanigans here. We're going to have these problems in unification fights. So that's what I thought was going to be happening. But then as of today, I saw some chatter where it's still not 100% clear if there is going to be some sort of next day weigh-in for the IBF. Now, Canelo doesn't need the IBF title. There's no law that says he must do that if he doesn't want to. So I don't think that's going to be a real factor. But I also think that Canelo, when he was fighting at Canelo weight at 155, was blowing up to 172, 173. I think that's his natural weight. So I think, at weighing in at 160, he's probably going to get to 172, 173, 174. I don't think he'll be nearly as big as Jacobs was. I expect Golovkin to be coming in around 170, 171. I don't think the weight is going to be that big of a factor. I think it's going to be 2 or 3 pounds either way. The difference is Canelo used to be 172 or 173 when he was at 154 and 155. So I don't think Canelo comes into 180. And I think if he does come in at 180, that's going to hurt him, because that's not going to be good for his mobility. I don't think that would be the ideal strategy for him. Brandon, do you have any thoughts on that?
I completely agree. I think he should not come in bloated at all. That would probably be a really bad idea. And I've kind of heard the same thing you've heard as well. Canelo really could care less about the belts. Let's make that extremely clear. He kind of wants, Triple G's head on his mantle. The belts mean nothing, because look at how he's kind of treated the WBC. The WBC is like that ex-girlfriend who won't leave Canelo alone. They keep on text messaging him, popping up in his house. He wants nothing to do with the WBC. Now they're making belts, trying to give to him. He could care less about the belts. It's all about the honor and picking up the win. So I don't think he's going to participate in anything as far as the weight goes after the official weigh-in on Friday. I think he could care less about the belts, whether he gets the belts or not. So, but I agree. Kind of, I could see the majority decision or split decision you're saying as well, Mike, for Triple G for the win.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I'm seeing it, because I'm seeing, to you gentlemen's point, that Triple G in the later rounds, pretty much taking over, because, like I mentioned previously, Canelo has a tendency to tire. And when he goes, except for like Cotto, definitely tired during the Lara fight, because Lara won the last three rounds in my opinion. But he definitely has a tendency to tire out at the ending of rounds when he's fighting an in-prime fighter. Now, Cotto wasn't in his prime, so I kind of negate that a little bit. But like to you guys' point, is the body punching, and then it comes down to an adjustment. Like we always talk about adjustments. And that does when also this is his time to shine and make those requisite adjustments. Or is it Abel Sanchez once again, coming up with plans B and C when A doesn't work? Because Canelo after round 4, to you guys' point, he's going to start really digging to the body and hitting Triple G with some combinations. So who can get the adjustments and properly maneuver those adjustments during the middle and the later and the championship rounds? And I think Triple G is more equipped and more tools, to you guys' point, to do that.
All right, well, Michael, thank you for calling in again. Always appreciate it. And look forward to talking to you. Enjoy the fights on Saturday.
No doubt. Then once again, Punch to the Face Radio. I can't wait to hear you guys about that Superfly card, because that card, that's what I was excited about. I was excited about the card from last weekend, and then now we're going into the middleweight fight. So
we'll get that in a little bit.
No doubt. All right, now.
Appreciate you, Mike.
No doubt.
All right, Adam, we're going to take one more because we're actually doing pretty good on time, and then we're going to jump here into the undercard. This one's intriguing me. We have an anonymous who's calling. Ooh. So anonymous,
exciting.
You're now
you're
now live on Punch to the Face Radio.
Hello?
Oh, yeah, it's me?
Yes.
Yeah, you're on, anonymous.
Oh, hold on. Let me get. I'm sorry. Let me get to where my TV is and all. Sorry. Help. Can you come right back to me? Or let me run in the room real quick.
We'll come back to you here after we talk the undercard then, okay? Just hang on the line.
Okay.
All right.
Interesting.
Well, that was new.
Yeah. So we do have a slight altercation, a slight altering of the undercard here, a part of Canelo Triple G. Jojo Diaz was supposed to have one opponent, and that opponent hurt his back. And that's not good to hurt your back during fight week. So now we have a change in opponents there for that's the co-main event of the night, the Jojo Diaz fight. So let me pull back up. I've forgotten that quickly who he's fighting. That's bad. Help me out here. Who is he fighting? It's Rafael
Rivera.
Rivera, okay. I don't know why I thought it was Rivera Rafael, but I was close enough.
No, Rafael Rivera, and he's kind of less. Jorge Lara is one of these explosive power punchers that looks incredible in the first 4 or 5 rounds. So I was really looking forward to that fight because it was somebody that Jojo Diaz, a fighter that he has never had to face before. He's never had to take big punches. Lara's really aggressive. He makes mistakes. He's wild, but that would have been an amazing matchup in my opinion. Rafael Rivera, I've seen maybe once. I believe I saw him fight once. And, he's not the athlete that Lara was, and he's also not the puncher. He's not a bad fighter. He's capable in the ring. He can handle himself. He has some skills. It's a much different opponent, though. This is going to be a type of fighter that Diaz is a little more familiar with. I don't think Rivera has a little bit of power. It's not like he can't hit, but it's not like he's a killer. So I think it's more of a solid opponent for Diaz. It's not a bad opponent, but it's not a great opponent. It's somewhere in the middle. I'm hoping Rivera was supposed to have already been in training camp. Of course, they always say that, so who the hell knows? Right. I mean, always training, right? But I'm hoping it's a decent fight because Jojo Diaz, Golden Boy thinks very highly of him. He was an Olympian. He's extremely marketable. They need him to become a star. Well, very gregarious guy. They really do. I mean, yeah. The issue with him is that he has no power. He has none. He has no power. He has boxing skills. He's sharp. He's athletic. He's a southpaw. He has a lot of good qualities. He just has no power. And you're going to wonder when he finally fights somebody that has power, how that goes for him. So that's the big issue for his career as he moves forward. So maybe this is a good, B- guy for him to face. And frankly, it's not like Diaz has been matched that tough. Still a decent opponent for him. I do expect him to win. Maybe he drops a couple of rounds here or there, but I do think he'll win a unanimous decision. I just hope it's a good fight because that Lara fight could have been incredible.
Yeah, oddly enough, before we did the show, I was watching a live interview with Diaz. He had said that Rivera was actually one of the original opponents here for this card, but due to the Lara fight was going to be a WBC title eliminator and Rivera not being in the rankings, they ended up going with Lara instead. And now, Lara gets hurt. Now Rivera is now back in. So that was something that was actually being planned out, from the get-go. So kind of interesting the way that plays out. Diaz didn't sound too overly concerned about Rivera. He is currently 25-24. 25-0. Does have 2 draws. I think he has like 19 knockouts. So not a horrible record, but it still should be a step up in competition for Diaz because he has been given a lot of light touches by Golden Boy. For us in boxing, we really want to see him fight somebody decent because we kind of don't really know what he's made of as of yet, besides the lack of power punching. So that's interesting there. Now, another co-feature on the card is Diego De La Hoya, who is Oscar's cousin. He's going to be facing, is it Ryan Carbajal?
No, Randy Caballero. Yeah, and
Caballero.
And Caballero actually. Yeah, and Caballero was actually a former title holder who lost at 118 and who lost his belt on the scales. And I think he was so overweight. I think he was supposed to fight Lee Haskins, the British fighter. I think he was so overweight that fight didn't even happen. I think he was 7 or 8 pounds overweight. And so Caballero took a break from boxing. Golden Boy was furious with him. Caballero comes out of that Indio, Palm Springs area of California. Capable fighter. He's going to be as the B-side here. Against De La Hoya. De La Hoya has, a decent left hook. And, as an athlete to some degree, this is another step-up fight. So even though Caballero has fallen out of favor in boxing circles, he certainly has skills. We don't know his commitment to the sport right now, if he's mentally all there, if 122 is his best weight. I think De La Hoya probably squeaks by with a split decision, and it will be a close fight. I don't think it will be a great fight. Caballero, neither of them, I don't think are born punchers. Caballero is not really a punching guy. Bantamweight, I don't expect him to have a lot of power at 122. And De La Hoya is still a little green, so I think it's going to be a close fight, like a 6-4 type of fight. And I think De La Hoya, being the home fighter in one of those 50-50 type fights, I think he winds up getting the victory there.
Now, this is for a NABF Super Bantamweight title, so belts do matter, folks. But that is the co-feature. And, I mean, it's good for Golden Boy to get these guys this exposure. This is actually going to be De La Hoya's 4th fight here in 2017. So they keep their guys busy. Granted, we may not always see them on large platforms as far as television goes, but they keep their guys busy, and, I mean, this is a good reward for De La Hoya. Stay busy throughout the year to be thrown on one of the biggest pay-per-views of 2017 and getting that exposure to the masses.
It's a real fight, too. This is not a walkover. Caballero is a skilled fighter. It's a good matchup. I mean, I do think De La Hoya will pull it out, but I don't think he's ever been in with somebody as talented as Caballero, so I'm looking forward to the fight. I definitely am.
Also on the undercard, you may not see him on television, Virgil Ortiz is somebody else that Golden Boy is really high on. And also former Punch to the Face radio guest and somebody I just adore, Marlen Esparza. She's going to be making her 3rd professional fight. Hope to see her improve. She improved from the first fight, going to the second fight. I look for her to improve even more here from the second to the 3rd fight. And I just love her. If you've missed that interview we had with her here on the show, definitely check the archives on iTunes. Just search Punch the Face Radio. Her episode, her interview was tremendous. I love her. She's good in my book. I mean, literally, she could go punch a little kid. I'd be fine with it. I'd say the kid probably deserved it. I love Marlen. Good peoples.
That's excellent. That's a wonderful ringing endorsement, Brad. Let's take. Why don't we take our call before we transition, and let's see if that caller is ready, and if so, Oh, the other fight that's going to be in the pay-per-view is Ryan Martin. He's an exciting prospect. I believe he was on the Golovkin card earlier in the year against somebody that we don't even need to really care about. So Ryan Martin is facing a guy named Francisco Rojo. Francisco Rojo is 20-2. Nobody really. He's fought his whole career in Mexico. Let's say this is another showcase fight for Martin. Martin has a ton of skills, extremely talented, and he's also, like, to my knowledge at least, and maybe K2's kind of promoting him on a fight-by-fight basis. I'm not sure if Ryan Martin has a long-term contract with anybody in the sport. I think he's just one of those exciting prospects that people are trying to sign long-term. I could be wrong on that, but as of earlier in the year, he was working with K2 on a fight-by-fight basis. He's a very exciting fighter, very skilled. I don't expect his fight to be that close, but he's still a young fighter, Ryan Martin. He's 19-0. He's 24. He has real power. He's somebody that I think the boxing world, he fights around lightweight. I think he's somebody that the boxing world is going to take notice of in the next, let's say, 12 to 18 months.
Well, good deal. Well, our anonymous caller is back, so we're going to try him again. So you're now back live here on Punch to the Face Radio.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
We can hear you.
How are you doing?
I just called in.
This is Milo Place.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good. I just want to talk about the super flyweight card. I'm interested in Canelo Golovkin, but at the same time, they made me wait. Canelo did nothing while we waited. Like, literally pissed people off each fight, picking the opponents. Golovkin found his way to look. You know, I know a lot of people don't like the Golovkin opponents, but we must say they are better than Golovkin's, than the Danny Jacobs performance. I think Jacobs is loosey and average and not have a tight defense. I don't think he's that good. And Golovkin found a way to struggle in that fight. So I don't think, like, I don't blame anyone who says that this fight isn't just hitting them the way it could have if they would have just made it. Because they really messed up and lost some dominance or lost some luster. Well, at least Canelo probably never had it. But, no.
I hear you. I mean, I hear you. In a perfect world, I mean, I really wanted this fight to be a year ago. I did. I mean, I said a couple of sour things. Like, I'm really happy that it's now so boxing fans have a chance to see it. But I would have loved to have had it a year ago, definitely.
I'm going to get to that Superfly card. I'm going to leave out Inoue because that wasn't one of the better fights on the card. I respect what he does, but the two Mexican fighters where you had Cuadras and Estrada, I feel like Estrada literally, he was the anti-Earl Spence, anti-Badu Jack in the moment where he could have closed the guy out. I know there's something to say about being patient, but once you've been patient enough, it's time to leave the doctor's office and stop being the patient. Go for the kill. Go send somebody to the doctor's office. I did not like that. I didn't like it one single bit. Like, if you mean what leaving it up to the judges means, you saw exactly what that meant. And he better be glad Michael Buffer pulled a Steve Harvey, because nobody could argue that, hey, the judges did it to you. But I mean, I like the way he let I don't like slappy fighters. I don't like James DeGale. I don't like Danny Jacobs. I don't like Cuadras. I don't understand, like, the slappy punches. Maybe their hands hurt. I don't know, but he did the right thing, and he started to throw the punches down the middle, start coming with the hook, the harder hook. He started eventually turning the hook over and really punching through the target. And I'm thinking, okay, he's about to get loose on this guy. But what happens is I seen him run into a right hand, and HBO had the perfect camera angle. He ran into it, and it was ridiculous. It was one of the better shots Cuadras thrown probably his whole career, not just that night, because he's slappy. He throws the right hand, and Francisco Estrada blinks, and he's like, I'm not going into that no more. And I'm just like, that's the anti-Spence, that's the anti-Badu Jack. When you got a guy that's telling you, I'm tired, I'm ready to get beat up now. I liked the performance up until that, and then I was just mad at everything after that. Like, yo, you had him on the ropes reeling, and you let him off. You left it to the judges. But and then as far as the main event, Oh my goodness, I never said Chocolatito was pound for pound number one. I always respected that he's very skilled, keeping his hands high, combinations. But combinations coming forward, being able to jump around the opponent, being able to step to the opponent, cut the ring, all those things he could do well. But at some point, you got to know that you are outgunned and you have to adjust. I don't mean you have to start holding. You have to start hitting low, grab it, punching. At some point, just make it one or two shots. See the jab, make him make a mistake off of his jab. Something else other than just walking in there taking shots. And if anybody was a smart fan, they saw this coming. At some point, I called that he would get knocked out in this fight. I was doing a live feed of the fight, and I was telling people he's going to get knocked out. And when I saw this man, I call him Visa Card because I can't pronounce his name. I saw Visa Card actually. What I saw from Visa Card was he punked out in one of the exchanges. He literally punked out in one. Like, I was like, oh, shit, my prediction may be wrong. And then the next round, they got in the same kind of exchange. And he told Roman, I'm not leaving. I'm here firing back, which next round Roman was out. He was gone. He was done. And I'm just saying to myself, I told all along, there are no adjustments in that game. It is fun. It is exciting. It is one of the most exciting styles you will see across the board. And I accept if he wants to come back. I don't mind a UFC record. I don't mind 7 losses, 3 losses. Hell, if you still trying to be the best and you fun and entertaining, have at it. If you going, you can't be Adrian Broner racking up 5 damn losses or 3 or 4, wherever he's at right now, and then just pissing us off when you get in the ring. But if you want to go in there and lose like that, I'll stick around and watch. Hell, you may pull something out. You may out-punk somebody that night. You may punk somebody out, But, if he wants to lead the game, farewell to it. I'm going to get off here and go eat my chicken wings. That's why it was taking me long to get to the call, but I'm listening. Like, y'all go at it.
Well, thanks for calling in, and I think we're going to get to the Superfly card in a moment, and so I'll give my thoughts at that point in time. I just think you made some very good observations about the Estrada fight, and I'll cover that. I think some of the things that you're seeing are some of the points that I'm going to make. So we'll cover that in a minute. But thanks for calling in. Great points, great conversation. Really appreciate it. So
my man called him Visa Card.
Yeah.
God.
Well,
oh God.
Let's get the Superfly. And that was fantastic, by the way. Stop being a patient.
That was a great
take. And that's what's funny is because I haven't. So the guy who just called in is the only Adonis Stevenson fan in the country. He might have some in Canada, but this is the only one that's in the United States. So he is the Secretary Treasurer of the Adonis Stevenson Fan Club. I don't know if there actually is one, but if there is one, he would be headed. So we don't always see eye to eye on him, but he does have some interesting insights and observations, and I thought he made some good points. So let's work back on Superfly from the Estrada fight. Can we start there? Because I think there's a lot to talk about there.
Oh, absolutely. Now, the question I had here too, the fans are, I called in on last week's show that I thought Cuadras Estrada was going to be the fight of the night. I think it was. I think it was clearly the best fight amongst those 3 that were featured on HBO. The question is, did the judges have it right? And I think he hit it right on the head. Cuadras just, it's almost like he kind of took the foot off the gas a little bit. But on the same token, Estrada is somewhat of a slow starter that we've seen here in fights. But I thought it was a fantastic fight. But I think they did get the scores finally right when Buffer figured out who was actually fighting and naming and giving the right winner. But I thought it was a hell of a fight that really I would have had no beef if it went the other way. But I thought Cuadras kind of did it to himself, getting behind on the scorecards and then losing the lead that he had for pretty much just kind of taking his foot off the gas as the fight went on.
So years ago, if you remember that Bob Arum used to do a few shows, Top Rank would do these shows from Macau, right? They would have Manny Pacquiao cards, and then they'd have the Chinese fighter, Zhao Shiming. And they'd have these HBO2 cards that'd be on the afternoon, and they'd put a couple of Top Rank or Zanfer Promotions as their Mexican partner at the time. They'd put these smaller fight weights. So Estrada was on a bunch of these. So Estrada fought Brian Valoria. He fought Milan Malindo. So this is going back to 2011, 2012. And Estrada fought Brian Viloria. If you don't know him, he's a former Olympian, unified titleist at 112, also won a championship, I believe, at 108. Like, Viloria was a really good fighter. Ran hot and cold sometimes, but on a good night, he was fantastic. And so Estrada fought, I thought, one of the best fights of the year against Viloria, where he was dominant. You know, the first 2 or 3 rounds, 4 rounds were feel out, and then he just turned on the jets. You know, really athletic, combination punching in and out. And I'm looking at myself, and Estrada had been an unknown guy previously to the fight before when he fought Roman Gonzalez and lost the competitive division. Then he moved up to 112, and then he wins against Brian Viloria, who's a unified titleist. I'm watching Estrada, and I'm saying, this is one of the best fighters in boxing. And then, you know, he has a couple more fights that he looks very good in, especially against Giovanni Segura. And then he gets hurt, and then he has promotional problems, and then he wants $1 million to fight a Roman Gonzalez. So anyway, he had some injuries. He also derailed his own career. The fighter I saw on Saturday was 70% of what I saw against Viloria. And it upset me because Estrada's only 27 years old. He does not move like he used to. He used to really patrol the ring. He didn't throw combinations like he used to. He won that fight on, like, intelligence and guile and making adjustments. Everyone compared him to Juan Manuel Marquez. You know, like that type of, you know, figured out a more athletic opponent, you know, a more physical athletic opponent. He somehow found a way to win. So I give Estrada credit for that. I personally had Cuadras winning by 1 point. I definitely have no gripe if someone saw Estrada winning close. But what the caller said is that Estrada left that fight in doubt. I mean, to the point where, like, Harold Letterman gave Estrada Cuadras the 12th round in a really close fight. I mean, you should, even if it's going to be a decision, you better go in that 12th round and put your foot on the gas and be dominant. So Estrada won the fight. He showed you his skills and his intelligence in many ways. But from my eyes, he is not what he once was. He's still an excellent fighter. He may still be a top 10 or 15 fighter in the sport. But he could have been, like, top 5. Like, I'm telling you, that's how good he was. Like, he wasn't known. He didn't have all the right opponents. So I don't think he's physically what he was. And, you know, it's kind of our loss. It was a really good fight against Cuadras. Cuadras found a way to lose. He was probably up big. He was up big on my card. And, you know, he has nobody but himself to blame. He admires his work too much. His corner kept telling him to stop trading, to be less reckless, you know, to worry about defense, be more responsible. And Cuadras thinks he's a showman. And one of the things I wrote in my article about Superfly is fans like showmen, but they really like showmen who win. You know, and it's all, you know what I mean? Like, it's all well and good that you can entertain the crowd. But, like, why don't you fucking win the fight, you know? It's like you blew the fight. I think he was neck and neck with Roman Gonzalez. And he just runs hot and cold. He marches to the beat of his own drum. It makes him exciting. And the other thing that I wrote in my piece is, like, I sometimes think that Cuadras is more interested in assembling a highlight reel video than actually winning fights. So it's like he can look back at his fights, like, look at this 6-punch combination that I landed, and he gets all excited and, you know, he gets erect and aroused because he saw the 6-punch combination. And it's beautiful. It's incredible. But you know what? He didn't win the fight. And I think to myself, like, is he more interested in looking great or does he want to actually win the fight? And I say that because I don't know if the answer is clear because he's not fighting in a way to win. And so he's close to an elite fighter. He's not quite there. And it's frustrating if you're a fan of his or you enjoy his style because he's so close to being an elite fighter and he just keeps shooting himself in the fucking foot.
No, tell us how you really feel about him, Adam. Oh, man. But so let's now go with the second fight that aired here. We got to see the U.S. television debut of Inoue, hopefully I'm enunciating that right. I'm probably not because I'm horrible with international names. He won his fight over Antonio Neves. It was what it was. I don't think we were expecting anything different, but he did win a stoppage fight via the body shots he was throwing. Do you think Inoue did enough to really capture the appetite of the American fans to where they're going to clamor and want to have him back here in the States? Or was this maybe a one-off and we're going to see his next few fights still over there in Japan?
Well, it was kind of an odd HBO broadcast because they were talking about Inoue like he's some prospect. And like Inoue's already won titles at 108 and 115. And not just titles. He beat the top guy at both those divisions. So he beat Omar Narvaez at 115. He beat Adrian Hernandez at 108. Like, he already is an excellent fighter. It's just, when you're facing a guy who's in a safety-first mode like Nieves was, he doesn't offer you a lot. So what you saw was Inoue is a vicious body puncher. He has great footwork. He has a very aggressive temperament, but he's an opponent who was just trying to survive. So for me, I'm fully convinced that Inoue is one of the best fighters at 115. I would not bet against him at that division. So I already knew he's going to be that level. Whether it's HBO or K2 or whomever, I mean, he is that good. It's just you put an opponent in front of him that was not trying to win the fight. So he did what he had to do. He got the stoppage. Was he as fluid as possible? Did he have a chance to dazzle with combinations? No, that's because the opponent wasn't doing anything. So I don't mark him off at it at all. I want to see him. I hope he comes back. I think he's probably going to fight New Year's Eve in Japan. That's become a tradition over there. That's a huge fight night in Japan. But maybe he comes back early in the spring back to HBO. He does have an agreement now with K2 Promotions for their American fights. So I hope this comes. I hope we see Inoue, back in the States like once a year. And I think fans will enjoy his style. He's young. He really likes knockouts. He's well schooled, and he likes to mix it up. So those are my thoughts on him. I just think we needed to see a better opponent.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, he did what he was supposed to against the person he had in front of him, and you can't really knock him for that. A lot of times we knock fighters for having to fight a lesser opponent, but when you fight a lesser opponent in front of you, you're supposed to go out and destroy them and beat them and make it look easy. Inoue really didn't seem to be in any pressure or any trouble at all. He looked really relaxed out there for his first time fighting in the States, being on the type of card that he was a part of. He looked really relaxed to me. He just went out like it was just a sparring session to me. Just kind of like, and just did his work. He had an assignment, and he did his job. He did his work. So, was I blown away from it, being his American debut? No. Was I impressed by how calm he stayed and the stage that he was on and how he just pretty much got an opponent out of there who was of a lesser tier? I was impressed by that. I thought he did a tremendous job in that aspect. But I do hope we do get a chance to see him again here in the States. That's going to actually be a follow-up question to you. Now that Roman Gonzalez has lost, do you think that HBO, are they out of the smaller weight class, market now, or are they going to maybe still invest in some of these guys that, like you said, K2 has deals with? Where do you see the future of this going now that, Roman has now suffered back-to-back losses, and this last one was pretty devastating?
Well, it's up to Peter Nelson and the brass at HBO. It could go one of two ways. One way, and I'll give HBO credit, is that Peter Nelson was instrumental in bringing Golovkin over when he was second in command in HBO. He was instrumental in bringing Roman Gonzalez to HBO. I think Peter Nelson, who's the head of HBO Boxing, has an understanding that great fighters and exciting fighters can come from anywhere and fight at any weight. So I give him credit for that. I think he understands that the old rules of the past, that we don't show anything below featherweight, blah, blah, blah. I know that there is going to be some bias against the younger fighters because the smaller fighters, because they don't have the exposure. And let's also be real, they're not American often. And so that's one way. The second way, and the other thing that's going for them is they're relatively cheap. So you had 5 of the top 25 fighters, in my opinion, in the sport fighting on Saturday, and the whole card might have cost, I don't know, $1.2 million, $1.3 million. I mean, what would that have been if the top 5 of the 25 would be middleweights? You couldn't make that card on regular HBO. So because they're relatively cheap, and we've all talked about HBO's budget before, you could put on some good fights and throw out a good card for $750,000 and entertain boxing fans. So that's on one hand. The other hand is they aren't Americans. Many of them aren't fighting in America a lot. It's one thing if you're Pacquiao and you're not an American, but you're fighting in America all the time. Inoue is a big star in Japan. There's another Filipino guy, Jerwin Anejas, or Encajas. I might have mispronounced that, but he was on the Pacquiao Horn undercard. He's from the Philippines. He has a title 115. He's fantastic, but he fights there. Estrada and Cuadras fight in Mexico. They have fought in America before. So it's really, do they see a star? And I think if they see Inoue as a star, somebody that could come to America and sell tickets and move the needle, then I think they will stay in these divisions. I think Estrada's a great fighter. I don't see him as a star. I don't think he has that personality where he's a star. Maybe he's a Marquez figure where he just beats all these great fighters and then he eventually becomes the star. Maybe that's what happens. But Sor Rungvisai is a great. He's a fucking tough guy. Is he a star? I don't know. Is that somebody that American fight fans are going to fly places to see him fight? I don't know the answer to that. So I think it could go either of two ways. I think they'll probably play around with a little bit more just to see what they have. I hope they do because I believe it's been good for the sport. I believe it's been good for boxing fans to watch these guys. And not just these guys. We've seen some great fights because of that. Gonzalez Cuadras was a great fight. Estrada Cuadras was a great fight. The 2 Gonzalez Sor Rungvisai fights were fantastic. So, I hope they stay in the business, but it's very tough to read the tea leaves there sometimes.
And speaking of Sor Rungvisai, hopefully I enunciate that right, or as I like to call him, SSR, just to make sure I don't butcher the name. I say, are we giving him enough credit for him beating Roman Gonzalez here this time around? Now, the first fight was very questionable in scoring on a lot of people's eyes. A lot of people thought Roman had did enough to come back and win that fight. Honestly, maybe I was in the minority and I thought SSR did enough to, maintain that victory. It was important for him in the rematch to go out and to dominate. Now, he did that. Let's take nothing away from him. Now, there's a lot of people saying, Roman didn't look right from start to finish, which I will agree. I think in that same token, we can't take anything away from Sor Rungvisai's what he did Saturday night and not giving him credit for actually going out, being prepared, and stopping a guy that was, still in a lot of people's top 10 pound for pound. Do you think fans and media enough are giving him enough credit for the win, or are they more focusing on the downfall of Roman Gonzalez?
That's a really good point. And I'm kind of like you in that I actually had their first fight a draw, and that was unpopular because most people, let's face it, Roman Gonzalez is a very popular fighter amongst hardcore boxing fans. He's a very popular fighter on Twitter. People, and I was in this mix, we have been watching Roman Gonzalez for years fighting internationally, waiting one day for somebody to give him exposure in America because we knew how good he was. So he had this story of winning belts in 3 divisions and, his relationship with Alexis Arguello and the style that he fought. I think people really rooted for him. And so I saw that first fight as being really close. And most people thought that Gonzalez won. I thought Sor Rungvisai was landing really hard shots in that first fight, especially with the left uppercut and straight left hand. But I think your point is really correct in that if Gonzalez was not at his best, should that also be because of Sor Rungvisai? Because he didn't have the same confidence? because he was rattled, because he knew that Sor Rungvisai wasn't intimidated by him. So I think it's not just do we give credit for Sor Rungvisai's punching power and the way he set up the right hook and the way he fought, which was spectacular. I mean, he faced a guy who a year ago was everybody's pound-for-pound fighter, and he fought him to, a controversial win and then a knockout. So that tells you how much self-belief he has and how good he is. But on a secondary scenario, whatever problems Gonzalez may have had, now there might have been stuff out of the ring and weight stuff, but if Gonzalez was worried about the headbutts or wasn't fighting as confidently or he was unsure of himself, that is a direct result of Sor Rungvisai's success in the first fight. So I think you make a very good point. Sor Rungvisai deserves the credit. He earned it, and a lot of it was not just physical, it was psychological. I think the fact that Sor Rungvisai kept coming in the first fight and wasn't defeated when Gonzalez started turning on the pressure in the third, fourth, and fifth round, I think that played a large role in the psychology of the rematch, and he deserves a lot of credit for that win. That's one tough SOB.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's something that, we need to focus more on, not so much of, Roman losing and him looking so bad, but we got to give credit where it's due to his opponent for actually going out and beating him. Now, with that being stated, we saw a lot of weird, and let's just call it what it was. It was hate. It wasn't quality hate. It was just flat-out hate towards Roman Gonzalez after his knockout loss. A lot of people trying to pull down his legacy literally seconds within him losing. I got to say a shame on people who call themselves boxing fans for doing that at that juncture. I thought that was in really poor taste, especially some of the people it was coming from. It was coming from other boxing promoters who were throwing shade at this guy, and I thought that was completely unnecessary given the fact of what this said promoter was. I'm not even going to say this person's name to give him any publicity, but I thought it was really shitty for people to do that and to disparage Chocolatito's legacy after 2 losses. Now, it's already been word he does plan on coming back, whether it be sometime here next year, and he's going to return to fighting. What was your take on, seeing how social media reacted after the loss and just how they had to pretty much were trying to pull the guy down for him taking this L?
I think, I think you hit most of the points that I would have made. The thing that I objected to is the glee that people had. That was they were reveling in his defeat. Like it meant something, like it was joy. And it's like Roman Gonzalez is not a polarizing figure. Like he's not a bad person out of the ring. Like he didn't do anything wrong. Like he's not somebody you root against. And the way that some people were rooting against him, it was very strange to me. Like, oh, see, he was not this. He was all hype job, blah, blah, blah. It's two things. One, it's either ignorance or it's just an agenda. So, some people, those were those two camps. People, they're ignorant about what he did and who he beat. That's fine. I don't know everyone in boxing. I can't tell you who everybody beat. And sometimes it's tough to have a grasp on all of it. Or it's just people have an agenda. This guy's a little guy, blah, blah, blah. He's 112 pounds, 115 pounds, blah, blah, blah. He's a product of HBO, blah, blah, blah. HBO is making material, blah, blah, blah. So, to be honest, I did not have Roman Gonzalez as number one after the Sor Rungvisai fight. A lot of people kept him there. Pound-for-pound debates are often academic. I do participate in it because I like it. I think it's important to keep a record of the times that we're in. But I thought the Sor Rungvisai fight was close the first time. I don't have any glee in Gonzalez getting knocked out like that. He was a proud champion. He was great for the sport. He represented the sport very well. I didn't feel pride of any sort. Like, there was no I told you so. I mean, he fought a very good fighter who had his number, and he lost. There was I don't see why people felt the need for comeuppance or boasting about it. It was strange to me. Listen, I mean, people don't always, bathe themselves in glory, and I've been guilty of that in the past. And sometimes people wind up doing things, that make no sense a few days later. I mean, to them it might make sense, but it was a little classless. and it was unnecessary at that moment.
So to kind of tie a bow on the Superfly card, we were all hyped about it. At the end of the day, did it live up to the hype and the anticipation you had for it when you watched it here this past Saturday night?
Yeah, I mean, I think we got a great fight with Cuadras Estrada. I think it reestablished the fact that Estrada is a really talented guy. Cuadras is a guy who can compete with anybody on that level. I think it cemented the fact that Sor Rungvisai is a fighter to be reckoned with. I don't know if he's going to be back on HBO, but he's definitely built an international following. So if he fights again in Thailand or Japan, or if he fights a good opponent somewhere, we're all going to be checking out, him. So, yeah, I do think so. And Inoue got some good exposure. I enjoyed the card. I won't sit here and tell you it was the best card I've ever seen in my life, but it was very enjoyable and definitely had fights of consequence in it. So, yeah, I liked it. I mean, I think it did its job. I won't sit here and say it's the best they've ever seen, but it was a very entertaining, combination of fights they put on.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed it and hope that, maybe they can do something like that again here in the future, stack these cards with these, 3 fights featuring 3 weight classes. I think it's a great idea, great concept, and look forward to seeing more of these guys, these international guys being brought over here to the States and getting some mass exposure. So I'm going to hold on. We will segue that, but there is that card at in October. That's I think 3 154-pound fights at the Barclays. That's the Charlo Lubin card, and it has Erickson Lara against Terrell Gachet. So I think that actually is another one of those cards that has 3 different 154-pound fighters and fights in that. So that's also a very good card too. But I like the concept. I really do. Really do, yeah. We're trying our best to get Erickson Lubin here on the show before that fight here October 14th. So we're trying our best. We're seeing what we can get pulled out here on Punch the Face Radio. So we'll just keep fans informed in regards to getting him on. Now, to kind of segue, talking about international, we got an international fight here this weekend, and we also had one this past Saturday as well. We had the World Boxing Super Series that kicked off from Germany. Kind of shitty here for us here in the U.S. There's no television deal. Won't be one deal that at least that it's as far as it stands now. So we had to stream it through World Boxing Series, Super Series website. It crashed with maybe in the 6th or 7th round of the Usyk Huck fight. A shout out to you, Adam, for tweeting out the German YouTube feed. So where a lot of us were able to watch the rest of the fight. Usyk is a very scary individual, and I will say it again. If he does not win this tournament here in the cruiserweight division, I will be shocked. I thought Huck looked shocked, and overall, I'm glad the tournament started. We're going to have pretty much a fight from them every week going forward. But what did you think of Usyk Huck here this past Saturday? I thought it was a really fun fight for 4 rounds. I thought Huck gave the best that he could. He was firing off right hands. He just couldn't match Usyk's work rate and mobility and all-around boxing skills. But I think he gave a good account of himself for about 4 rounds, and then Usyk just dominated. And one of the things, there's this weird thing that, people don't find Usyk that exciting to watch. And I understand to a degree. I mean, he's very clinical. He's a boxer. He can really punch. And one thing that I liked a lot, he was very aggressive on Saturday. He went for the knockout. He was trying to hurt Huck. He's not a cutie. He's a boxer, but he likes to mix it up and knock people out. I was at that fight earlier in the year in Maryland against Michael Hunter. That was on the Lomachenko-Sosa undercard. That was a really good fight. And the only reason why that fight went 12 rounds is because the referee was too gutless to stop it or too incompetent to stop it. I mean, Michael Hunter was going on fumes. That fight should have been stopped 7 times. So Usyk does have power, and I'm like you. He is my odds-on favorite to win the tournament. He could always walk into a shot from somebody. There are some big hitters in the division, but I think Usyk is going to emerge from this tournament as one of the best fighters in boxing. It's very exciting, and I look forward to the next few rounds. Yeah, absolutely. This weekend they have Caleb Smith versus Eric Sokolin or how do you enunciate it? That goes down. That's in Liverpool. So like I said, we pretty much get a fight each week going forward here from the World Boxing Super Series. And again, you can watch that through the World Boxing Super Series website. hopefully, after their first fight out, maybe they can learn some things to make sure they get the bandwidth situated here for the second fight this weekend that goes down. And that was a part of the super middleweight division. So I think they're going to kind of alternate between the cruiserweight fights and the super middleweight fights. But each weekend going forward, you'll have a first-round fight to watch. Now, we would be remiss, as we talked about openly in regards to Triple G Canelo, there's the other middleweight title fight is actually going down this weekend. And for us here in the States, you're going to be able to actually watch this through Frank Warren TV's YouTube page. Billy Joe Saunders versus Willie Monroe. Probably if you've watched social media, you saw the face-off these two gentlemen had here earlier today here in the States. It would have been in the morning for us. This fight is going down. Billy Joe Saunders is kind of a forgotten guy at 160. I don't think a lot of us here particularly care about him, as bad as that may sound. What do you think of this fight as far as Saunders versus Monroe come Saturday?
Saunders' career has been very embarrassing since he's won the title against Andy Lee. He hasn't he's been out of shape. He's had to cancel fights. He's had problems with trainers. He's now with I think he's with Dominic Ingle now, who I believe trains Kell Brook. So Saunders almost lost his last fight against a Russian-based fighter who's in America. And the problem with this, it's actually not a bad. Willie Monroe is a capable top 10, top 15 guy. Fine. We saw him have. I'm not saying he won and did splendidly against Golovkin, but he showed you that he can hold his own in the ring. He won the Boxino tournament a couple years ago on ESPN. He's not without talent. He's a slick southpaw boxer, defensively minded, good punch accuracy. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of power. He also sometimes can be a little cautious letting his hands go. The problem that he has is Billy Joe Saunders is also a southpaw, and he also is a boxer. He also is fighting at home. So a lot of, now so it's going to be, I think it's going to be an awkward fight. I don't think it's going to be an exciting fight to watch. I have no problem with the fight being made by any stretch of the imagination. I think it puts two top 15 guys together. I just think one of those, one guy's going to land 5 punches in a round, and he's probably going to win the round. I think it's probably going to be competitive. I just don't see how Willie Monroe wins this decision on the card. So I expect Billy Joe Saunders to win a decision, like an 8-4, 9-3 type of fight. Willie Monroe will probably have thought he had done better than he actually did. But I don't see Monroe winning that fight in England.
Yeah, and it's one of those things to where if this is going to be a showcase bout for Billy Joe Saunders to, hope to get that unification bout with the winner of Canelo Triple G, I don't know if this is the correct opponent to do that against. But from that same perspective, this is someone who at least is, ranked amongst the top middleweights in the world. But I just don't think style-wise it's going to be one of those where after we watch this fight in the afternoon, we say, man, I can't wait for Billy Joe Saunders to face the winner of tonight's fight. I just don't see that happening.
I don't think it's going to create a lot of demand. Yeah.
No, it's not. So, I mean, it's kind of a keep-busy fight for him. It keeps his name out there. It kind of keeps him in the mix to where he could say, well, hey, I beat so-and-so. I won a big fight. The problem is with Billy Joe Saunders is far too often he's had fights made and canceled to where I'm still not convinced this fight happens until the opening bell. And that's kind of sad to say, but he's one of those UK fighters that, he pulls out of fights far too often and weird things happen. So, like you said, his career has kind of been an embarrassment over the last 2 years. Let's hope he can right the ship. Maybe he can do something spectacular Saturday night or Saturday afternoon here in the States that has us buzzing and have American fans like, oh, okay, Billy Joe, you're on our radar now. But I think it won't happen.
I'm not ripping the fight. I'll be watching it. You know what I mean? It's not like it's a legitimate fight. I just don't think it's going to be one of those. It's like remember when Hopkins fought Winky Wright? It's like it's a legitimate fight. It's just not going to be one that's going to be good to watch. So I think that's what this fight is going to be. I'm going to watch it hopefully something happens interesting. Maybe Saunders with his new trainer is going to put some things together. Saunders knocked Andy Lee down twice. He looked good in the beginning of that fight. He beat Chris Eubank Jr., who I like a lot. It's not that he's not without talent. It's the lack of focus. It's like he fades a little bit late in fights. He's not a fantastically conditioned athlete, but he does have talent. And so I'll be watching it. I don't expect anything great, but sometimes, here's one fight that I was so convinced was going to be awful that I left. I went away purposely one night because I didn't want to watch it. It turned out to be a fantastic fight. Remember that fight a couple years ago between James DeGale and Andre Dirrell when DeGale had multiple knockdowns and it turned out to be an amazing fight, right? Like to that point, DeGale was like a cute boxer and Dirrell was like a runner. I'm like, this fight is going to be awful. I'm going to tape it and I'm going to go out and enjoy it. I think it was on a holiday weekend. Like I'm just going to enjoy my life, and if it turned out to be a great fight. So the great thing about boxing is you never know. You watch it. Maybe something good can happen. I'm not expecting much, but you never know.
Yeah, sometimes when we set our expectations low, we get surprised by the outcome. So I agree with you there. It's going to be one of those things as I'm preparing my fiesta. Jesus. As I prepare my fiesta for Canelo Triple G, I will definitely have it here on the iPad as I'm in the kitchen cooking and getting food together. So I'll be tuning into it now. I won't be laser focused on it, but it's definitely something I'll be having in the background as I'm getting stuff together here for the fight.
So the important question is, who is Brandon's mom? Who is Mama Stubbs picking this week between Golovkin and Canelo? Because I know she likes the fights. So who is she going? Well,
absolutely. Now I will state this, as those who've listened to the show and who've ever been around me know, we harbor very strong feelings about anyone who defeats our guy, Miguel Cotto. So with that being stated, by default, she can't pick Canelo. She just can't. So she is with Triple G. She finds Triple G to be kind of scary. She said he kind of reminds her of a little bit of almost like the Mad Comic guy who's on the front of the Mad Comics. She said he kind of has that weird sinister smile about him, and he just doesn't seem like he's completely all there, like he's a bit crazy. And she likes that about him. So she is going Triple G. She really hopes in this case that he beats the bejesus out of Canelo for the simple fact Canelo beat Cotto. We have a very weird dynamic at our house. If you beat Cotto, we really pretty much we don't even speak about Cotto's losses at our house. We try to very dance around him. So, but the weird thing is this, I was actually talking to her about that because she was asking me, we watched the Cotto's fight here a couple of weeks ago, and she said, what's next for him? It's like, well, if he plans on fighting before the end of the year is out, he's wanting, I could see HBO and Golden Boy trying to make him and Canelo Part 2, especially if Canelo wins. But as logistics-wise, I don't see that happening before the year is out. So, she's going to be definitely paying attention to this fight and seeing how this plays out because she knows it could somehow factor into our guy, Miguel Cotto. It's crazy here, Adam. It's crazy.
I hear you.
With that being stated, we do have some callers here on the line. We're going to bring them on and have them talk some boxing with us. Now, I think I know who this one is. So, caller, you're now live here on Punch to the Face Radio.
Hey, what's up, guys?
What's going on?
Hey, Brandon, Adam, it's Agustin.
Oh, hi, Agustin. How are you? Capitan.
I'm doing good. I just came back from work. I just got in from work. I wasn't able to listen to the entire show because there was a bunch of people on the bus and it was just hectic. But
I know. What
did you guys talk about? What did you guys talk about?
We were waiting for you to tell us how Canelo was going to win because this is Capitan Mexico is calling us, and so he has graced us with his presence. So Brandon and I both have selected a Golovkin to win, and we know that is not going to sit well with you. So why don't you tell us why Canelo is going to win?
Canelo's going to win. Well, in order for Canelo to win, he's going to need to be able to slip underneath or avoid Triple G's jab, who also happens to have one of the best jabs in boxing. Okay? He's going to need to counter that jab with some crisp, telling combinations. He's going to need to do that and attack the body. Attack the body, focus on the body. He's not going to knock out Triple G. He does not have that kind of power. Jacobs didn't even make him flinch. I don't think Canelo's best chance at knocking out Triple G is by focusing on the head. If Canelo wants to win, he's going to need to focus on Triple G's body. And, like I said, he's going to need to be able to counter Alpha Triple G's jab. If he cannot do that, he's just going to be offset the entire fight, and he's going to get knocked out.
Do you think Canelo is going to win legitimately, or do you think he's going to win as the hometown guy gets the nod?
No, I don't think so. Triple G's going to hurt him. If at any point Canelo sits on the ropes like he usually does with other fighters, Triple G's going to hurt him, and it's not going to end well for him. If Canelo wins, he's going to win convincingly, or it's going to be a very competitive fight, but I'm expecting Canelo to win. I think he can pull it off. Okay.
All right. No, we talked about that tonight. We talked about the Superfly fights. Capitan Mexico believes that Estrada will wind up being one of the best fighters in boxing, and I respectfully disagree. Not that he isn't a great fighter. It's just I'm upset that I thought he was once a better fighter. I still think he's very good. But go ahead.
You have to keep in mind he just turned 27. He turned 27.
That could be old though for younger guys.
He basically took 3 years off fighting lesser of opposition. He was not fighting the best guys out there. He's probably fighting one of the best guys at 115. He jumped in the deep side of the pool, just like that. And I think that Estrada is gonna keep on looking better. And he reminded me of Juan Manuel Marquez. Now, if he does fight Rungvisai, I think his style is tailor-made for Estrada, who is just gonna be boxing out back foot and counter-punching anything Rungvisai sends his way. The way he knocked down Cuadras, he caught and shot. He was catching and shooting, and he did that very well. And I think Estrada can actually beat Rungvisai convincingly.
Yeah, I would favor Estrada in that fight. I think it's a good style matchup. I do favor my.
Fight.
I hope we can see it. I'm not. Estrada is sometimes very difficult to negotiate with, and I'm not expecting that fight to necessarily happen, but I really would like to see it. It's a good fight.
Correct. Hey, Brandon, are you going to go to Vegas, or are you planning?
No, I'm actually setting this one out. The birthday extravaganza last month pretty much killed my pockets and killed my budget here for the rest of 2017, so I more than likely will be home for the rest of the big fights here the rest of the year. So we are having a giant fiesta at my house, dip, burritos. I will be breaking out my sombrero again since it is Mexican Independence Day weekend. And, I love my brown brothers and sisters, but I am going Triple G. But nevertheless, I'm Mexican at heart. I love the culture, love the people. So we always party come September and May for Cinco de Mayo, Mexican Independence Day weekends. Big weekends for boxing.
Triple G is actually one of my favorite fighters to watch. I met him in person. He's one of the nicest guys in boxing. And I cannot ride with him on this one. I cannot do it.
We know you can't. But you would get banned in your country. You can't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's we want you to be safe. Like, no, you can't say Triple G.
One thing you need to know about Canelo is that Mexican people don't like him. They do not like him. People do not like Canelo because he is a product of a TV company. He is a product of a broadcaster called Televisa. When he was brought up, he was brought up like in the eye of entertainment. He was going out with Miss Universe pageant contestants. He was going out with soap opera TV stars. and he was always in magazines, and he was just, his career was made in TV, and people do not like him because of that.
Yeah, I heard that he's much bigger in Mexican-American households than he is in Mexican. But
That's
with that
correct.
being
Nobody
said,
likes him.
he does draw enormous ratings on Mexican TV. So people watch. I've seen some of the numbers. I mean, he's drawing like 60 and 70 shares for the ratings in his fight. So, it could be a Mayweather thing where they hate watch him, but they watch him.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you guys for taking my phone call.
Yeah.
Enjoy your fight. I got Canelo on points, and watch, you guys are going to see Canelo's going to pull it off.
All right, well, thanks for calling in. We appreciate it.
I appreciate you, man.
Thank you,
Take it
Brandon.
easy. All right,
All right,
problem,
thanks.
man. Yeah, it's funny he says that. One thing I do want to bring up is, I was out there, and you can shame me again for doing this. We went out to Vegas for Canelo, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., and that was a vibe I got from a lot of the Mexican fans out there was they don't like Canelo. And it was almost like by default that they were cheering for Chavez Jr., which is so sad. And you could see so many of them's faces. They were just heartbroken by the lack of effort, and now they kind of pretty much knew that Canelo is now the Mexican boxing, and they couldn't appreciate that, as weird as that sounds.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting relationship, and I've read some pieces, about his how he's received there is very mixed. And I mean, he's a huge star, and I don't know if he's as controversial as Mayweather is, but I think there's a large portion of people that, if not root against him, they're not necessarily fans of his.
It's crazy. We got another caller here on the air from the 415. Caller, you're live here on Punch the Face Radio.
Hey, fellas, what's happening? It's Larry out in San Francisco. How you doing tonight?
Hey, Larry.
What's going on, Larry?
Enjoy the show as always. One of the marks of a good show is when there's like every single topic I want to comment on. But for the sake of time, we'll have to maybe save that for another time. But yeah, let me hit Superfly real quick. I was significantly entertained, particularly by the Cuadras Estrada fight. I thought that was one of the better fights we've seen this year. I love the action. I love the gamesman and showmanship of Cuadras. But Adam, I do agree. If you're going to do all that showing out, you got to win the fight. Otherwise, what was the point? Couple of things, though. Coming out of Superfly, I came out of there with some questions that I don't hear other people asking and wanted to get y'all take on it. Question number one, why was Cuadras doing all that doggone switching that did not do anything for him and, in my opinion, cost him the fight? Question two, why are more people calling for a rematch of that? But that was a close fight. I actually had Estrada by a round, but I could have seen it going either way. And when fights are normally that good and normally that close, there's typically a call for a rematch. And three, why is Inoue getting such a pass calling out on Cajas when he just sat there and saw Sor Rungvisai knock out the dude he came to see because he wanted to fight him? The fight that we should be calling for is the SSR versus Inoue fight. Two big hitters, two guys who just got a stage set for them on the Superfly card, but no one's calling for that. I don't get it. And finally on that, the reason for all the Roman Gonzalez hate, in my opinion, on Twitter and whatnot, two things. One, it's hate on the lower weight classes. People who already came in with their mindset against that are using that as their excuse to hate. And secondly, it's an anti-HBO thing. They see Roman as somebody that HBO propped up there, and they did. They marketed him and put him forth, but they marketed and put forth a great fighter who put on great fights. So what's the problem? But, yeah, I kind of just dismiss all that mess when I hear it and see it. But, yeah, Superfly, Super Y, those are some of my questions. What do y'all think?
Adam, you want to start off here or you want me to go?
Go ahead, Brandon.
All right. Now, as far as them not calling for a rematch, I have no qualms with them not doing a Cuadras Estrada rematch. I just kind of wonder if the politics will get involved. Both parties getting involved, this can happen. If they do really have this happen, I'm game for it, and I'll definitely watch it. Now, as far as Cuadras And I think him switching throughout the fight was more of him, again, that's this showboat mentality. He's trying to show that, hey, I can do this from different angles, baby. I can make it do what it do. And it didn't. And that's kind of one of the things that cost him the fight. Now, as far as Inoue kind of getting a pass, I think it's almost one of those things where, at least here from the American fan base, that this is the first time them actually getting an actual eye on him and not knowing much about his background and not knowing a ton about him, to where I don't think we're seeing the masses in boxing say, why are you not going after the guy who just beat the guy who we thought was the guy? So I understand. I honestly said I almost want to see, Estrada, SSR, and not Inoue right now. Maybe that's a fight they could build a little bit more into. I think the build-up for that kind of has to happen a little bit more, since they're both foreign fighters, not being shown much here in American television, to where that's not really being strongly pushed compared to if Roman would have won, Roman and Inoue happening, because a lot of us in boxing circles thought that was, the setup here after Saturday night, but SSR had different plans for that. So, that's my take on that. I think I might have missed one of the questions. I don't know. Adam, you can take it from here.
No, you said almost everything I was going to say. I think, Larry, the only thing that I'd point out about the Inoue fight is that I think he wants to fight in New Year's Eve, and he's going to be where that brings in a certain amount of money, and Cuadras is a very good fighter, and I don't have a problem with it because that's a great fight. So if he's, that's a unification fight. So I have no problem if he wants to take that fight. And I think what they might be thinking about is that Sor Rungvisai might be even a much bigger money fight. And so maybe that fight happens down the line. Maybe that happens in the U.S. or maybe that's Japan in a bigger budget. I think they have, typically now what happens in Japan is they have 2 or 3 nights, and each of the promoters over there, stages cards of their top 3 fighters. And so it might be that, and Cuadras fits more from a budgeting perspective. Again, that's a great fight, but that might be why I don't think they're afraid of it. I just think it might be a money thing, and I think and Cuadras might be more makeable right now for a December fight. That's all. I think all the other points that you brought up are really good, and I agree with Brandon's responses as well.
Okay, fellas, appreciate it. I'm going to let y'all get on to whoever. But real quick, I got Triple G by decision, but with nowhere near the conviction that I had this time last year. I do see a path for Canelo winning the fight. I do see a path for Canelo stopping Triple G. But I think all those options and all those paths opened up in the last 12 to 18 months where only one existed before that. But keep doing your thing. Keep doing the good work, fellas. I'm out.
Thank you very much, Larry.
Appreciate you, man. Wow, that's a first saying, there's paths for Canelo to win via stoppage. I think if that were to happen, man, I don't know what next week's show would be. I think that could be a harsh show for me next week.
Gonzalez and Golovkin getting knocked out in consecutive weeks would be something, wouldn't it? I mean, that's almost like, and think about Kovalev getting knocked out too this year. I mean, you have 3 of the biggest killers in the sport getting knocked out in a year. That's just crazy. I mean, you're talking about 3 of the top 5 fighters in the sport getting knocked out.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's wow. I was gonna go on a rant here to close the show, but we've had such great energy. To where I'm not even gonna bring up this person's name.
What was the topic?
It was, I don't. You've probably seen the video of.
I know.
So, you know what? We're just gonna keep as is. We'll save that rant for another week. Now, I went on a rant last week, kind of did some social media buzz with that, but we're gonna hold the rants off. This was a good show tonight. A couple quick notes here. Deontay Wilder versus Ortiz is now official.
Oh, it is?
That's going to be crazy. Yeah, it's going to happen over in New York, November 4th. Seems like somebody else.
Yeah, I think I'm actually that could have a really deep undercard as well with Dominic Brazil fighting Bermain Stavern. Danny Jacobs going to be on the undercard. I actually may go to that. So I might actually head up to Barclays. I think I got one more card in me, not a flying 2 card, but maybe a driving 2 card. So I think I may go to that one if it materializes. I'm excited about that.
There's also a rumor with that card that the co-feature of the night could be Errol Spence versus Luis Collazo.
Oh, cool. Great.
Yeah.
No, I mean, to be honest with you, I 100% thought Collazo was going to be his next opponent. I never thought. I mean, that's the person I immediately said in terms of, give Spence another get busy opportunity, an interim fight. I always thought it was going to be Collazo, so that's fine. I'm not saying it's a great opponent. I'm just saying that's exactly who I thought it was going to be, and I'm fine with it.
Yeah. I'm just glad he's going to be in action before the year's out. And honestly, guys, shouldn't have took him this long. Let's just be honest. I mean, that's
right.
That's something. That's another rant for another day. We it's like beating a dead horse when we say that in regards to the PBC fighters. But that's really all I got, man. This has been a great show. We've got the last few minutes here. With that being stated, Adam, plug away. Let people know. They should know already, but let them know what's going on.
Yeah, so really busy. Obviously, a lot going on. My website, SaturdayNightBoxing.com. I have my prediction article on Golovkin. Had a nice write-up on Superfly. I also had a piece a couple weeks ago that's been very well read about Top Rank's move to ESPN and how that affects those 2 organizations and HBO. So for whatever reason, my readership's been really high. I actually was featured in Sports Illustrated today on their expert pick section of their Golovkin Canelo fight, so that's cool. One other thing is I will be having an interview with Jack Reese later on the month. It's already been conducted. I just have to write it up and kind of once we get a little further away from these big fights, there's some incredible stuff in that interview from Jack Reese. He's the referee out of California. Some great perspectives on the sport. That's something that I would highly recommend that you read. I learned a lot from it, and it just a great piece. So SN Boxing on Twitter, have a Facebook group, SN Boxing as well. And as always, Brandon, loved being on the show tonight and really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Hey, man, you know what it is, man. You're my brother in boxing. You help make the show fun. You bring such a great perspective to kind of bounce off of me here on the show because not everybody wants to hear me talk for like the whole podcast. So that's kind of a good thing because, I mean, I can hear me talk all day. I love me, but we gotta share the wealth here. As everybody knows, you can always follow me on Twitter, Brandon P2TF. You can you know what? I'm not going to give my email because my email got hacked. So I'll give my email address out. But follow me on Twitter. I'll be actually a guest on Clutch Sports Talk here this Friday, where I actually talk with them about Triple G and Canelo, and I break down the fight with them. So obviously I'll be tweeting that out here later this week. We're trying to get some guys confirmed here for the show for next week. Could be kind of an interesting week. We're still waiting on that. But, we just want to tell everybody, man, I appreciate everyone listening into the show, the support we're getting across the board. Shout out to my UK fans. I do have one quick thing to say to the UK fans here for Saturday night. Amir Khan is going to be doing commentating for Box Nation for the Canelo Triple G fight. I beg of all of the UK listeners, anytime Amir Khan says something crazy, please quote it and tweet it out. If you can't get video of it or audio of it, we would appreciate it here in the States because we know Amir Khan is going to say something crazy. He is not recovered from that knockout that he suffered from Canelo. So I'm asking my UK fans to do that for me. I would truly appreciate it if you make my Twitter feed light up with dumb. Okay, well, I'm here.
I got kicked out and I'm back. I don't know what happened. Those are all those like gremlins and all this technology. So it's fantastic. But
this is a great way to close the show.
Yeah, the time's perfect. It's like you guys have done enough for tonight. Call it a night. We're tired, so that's fine. I appreciate it. I got the hint, world. Thank you.
Well, with that being stated, folks, man, again, I appreciate Adam Abramowitz of Saturday Night Boxing being a part of the show. He'll be back on here a lot sooner than later, folks. We'll get the details to you here to where he'll be back on the show talking more boxing with me because it makes the show fun. With that being stated, I want everyone to stay safe, stay blessed, love one another, because that's the only way we're going to get through this. Enjoy this weekend's fights, folks, and drink responsibly. Coach Larry, I'm talking to you in Las Vegas. Drink responsibly. With that being stated, man, this is Brandon Stubbs and Punch the Face Radio, and I'm out.
Hi, you've reached the High Fashion Hotline.
Hi, spiced apple cider is back, and so are the fall trends. My family needs new clothes to spice up our fall wardrobe.
Spice up their style with new jeans from Old Navy.
Old Navy?
Yep, right now, all jeans from Distress to Stretch are on sale from $15 for adults, $10 for kids. Plus, get up to 50% off store-wide.
All jeans on sale and up to 50% off store-wide?
That's right. All your family's favorite jeans are on sale now at Old Navy and OldNavy.com.
We can fall for that.
High Fashion, Old Navy. Valid 9/14 and 9/20. Excludes in-store clearance.